Welcome to the Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, it's our monthly conversation with Dr. Roger McEowen for the Washburn School of Law. We'll talk issues that's been working through the legal system when it comes to agriculture. We'll also have features from the Kansas Soybean Commission, Kansas Department of Agriculture, and Kansas Grain Sorghum, plus our weekly update for the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com. In agricultural news, two companies, Corteva and Bayer, provided more than half of U.S. retail sales of corn, soybeans, and cotton from 2018 to 2020. That according from the Economic Research Service at USDA. In recent decades, the U.S. crop seed industry has become more concentrated with fewer and larger firms dominating seed supply. Today, four firms, Bayer, Corteva, Syngenta, and BASF, control the majority of seed and agriculture chemical sales. In 2015, six firms led global markets for seed and ag chemicals, and the concentration can be placed back to the expansion of intellectual property rights to private companies for seed improvements in the 70s and 80s, the report said. As biotechnology advanced, companies created genetically modified seed varieties like herbicide-tolerant and insect-resistant corn for soybeans and cotton as well. Mergers occurred between companies that produced and sold pesticide, seed treatments, crop seeds, and seed traits. As a result, the U.S. crop seed sector has become highly integrated with ag chemicals and even more concentrated. Well, as combines roll in the field this fall, renewed sense of optimism when looking at the real estate market. The current state of the ag land market, resilient, demand still for high-quality farmland is strong in the face of higher interest rates and lower commodity prices. That according to Farmers National Company. However, the market will likely return to a new normal flow, and evidence of the slowdown of appreciated rate of ag land as well as sales volume at their company anyway. Regional drought pressure along portions of the Corn Belt also softening a short-term demand for land. Areas highly impacted by the drought have seen seasonal pressure, while the lowest quality farms impact the most, while demand for higher quality land has remained stable. A solid demand for ag property from people interested in expanding their farming operation or investment opportunity seems to be driving the interest in the high quality cropland. And on November 1st, the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks will hold a public auction for surplus bison for the Maxwell Wildlife Refuge and Sand Stage Bison Range. The auction begins 11 o'clock in the morning at the Maxwell Wildlife Refuge. That's 6 miles north of Canton in McPherson County. Bidding and non-bidding parties are welcome and encouraged to attend. The Maxwell Wildlife Refuge managed specifically to preserve the area's prairie heritage. As such, herds of bison and elk are maintained, and both species that are native to Kansas grassland. But because the refuge can support only a certain number of animals, surplus bison are occasionally sold at a public auction. The combined total of 62 bison will be auctioned off this year: 10 cows, 10 yearling heifers, 12 two-year-old bulls, 11 yearling bulls, 9 bull calves, and 10 heifer calves. Now, if those heifer calves are older than 6 months, they'll be vaccinated for brucellosis and have their certificates issued. Now, if you want more information, contact the Wildlife and Parks Operations in Pratt. Stay with us. We'll have more coming up on the Kansas Ag Report. The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. Time now for our monthly conversation with Dr. Roger McEowen from the Washburn School of Law. He is an ag and tax law specialist. Dr. McEowen, thanks for joining us once again.
Yeah, good to be with you. My pleasure.
All right, so let's get to it, boy. Lots to talk about this month, and one of those is that I-9 that many of us find it very challenging to work. But I guess there's been some revisions that agriculture folks need to be aware of.
Yeah, Form I-9, which everybody has to complete when they're hiring someone, even agriculture. There's no exception for farming operations here. Everybody's treated the same. The government has modified that form, and the new form becomes mandatory starting in November 1st, and people need to be aware of that. There are places on the Department of Labor's website where you can go grab the new form and the new instructions. And really, Ken, I think it is a pretty good attempt to try to simplify the form and explain terms better and give more guidance on the instructions. So I think producers that hire farm hands, farm employees, I think they're going to find it helpful.
Okay, so maybe it's not going to be as ominous, but really,
Yeah.
are you telling us that the IRS really is trying to actually help people?
Well, Department of Labor,
Sorry,
not
yes.
IRS, but yeah, frankly, it kind of looks that way. They did have some hearings on this over the past year, and they got a lot of feedback on it. And it looks to me like they've incorporated that feedback in the new form. But people need to be aware that this one becomes mandatory November 1st.
Okay, they can go online and find more. Another
Right.
topic we want to touch on is having to deal with hunting use agreements and letting folks
Mhm.
do all that because we're about just really weeks ahead now from the major fall and winter hunting seasons.
Yeah, except for turkey season in Kansas, which has been canceled.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of these hunting agreements, they're just oral. We let people hunt on our property, or if we don't give permission, of course, they're trespassing. But sometimes you might want to give thought to actually reducing the understanding to writing. Because you can get into a number of issues. Maybe there's places on your property you don't want somebody to hunt, and so you want to restrict the hunting areas to particular areas, and you want to be clear that you actually have the right to hunt your property if that's what you want. So is it an exclusive agreement? Is it non-exclusive? Do the hunters have the exclusive right to hunt the property during the term of the agreement? And I would suggest that you be clear in a written agreement that the license that you're granting people to hunt is during the hunting season, denoted by the state. You don't want to get into those issues either. And then, of course, having disclaimer language in there in terms of liability, and always check with your insurance agent to make sure that you do have coverage, because a lot of comprehensive farm and ranch liability policies won't cover a non-business pursuit of the insured. So if you're charging a fee, for example, for people to come on your ground and hunt, your comprehensive liability policy is not going to cover that. You're going to need a rider. And you also may want to specify in the written agreement that the people that are coming on also have their own coverage. So that's just a few of the things to think about in reducing a hunting agreement to writing.
Aha. So the days of maybe the handshake, even things like hunting agreements, may have gone away as we look at here in 2023. So we're talking with Dr. Roger McEowen from the Washburn School of Law, and let's take a break. Come back. We'll talk more in just a moment. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com. And Dr. Roger McEowen from the Washburn School of Law is joining us for our monthly conversation with him about agriculture, going through the legal system, through the courts, and so on. Dr. McEowen, now let's talk about one. You and I have talked about this before,
Mhm.
but say if we have a drought, you have to liquidate herds, livestock because of it, and
Yeah.
there are some processes to it, so you don't maybe get dinged too much. But what there's been now extension gives you a little more time if you have to do a maybe larger than expected, say, herd liquidation or sell off.
Yeah, that's right. We do have rules in the tax code that allow you to not have to pay the tax on all of that livestock that you sold during the year, because if you sold excess over what you would normally sell in any given year, you can defer reporting the tax on the sale from the excess head. So let's say normally I sell 50 head and now I had to sell 100 because of weather-related conditions or drought. That excess on the 50, the income derived from the additional 50, I can defer that. And the rule is you can defer it for up to 4 years. You have to buy replacement livestock, and you would just defer that gain into the sale of the replacement livestock. Well, IRS has the discretion, the Treasury Secretary has the discretion to extend that 4-year replacement period in additional 1-year blocks of time. And by the end of September every year, they put out a list of what are known as the drought counties. And they did that in late September, just a few days ago. And there are a whole host of Kansas counties that are in there that qualify producers in those counties for this 1-year extension. So if they thought their time frame for replacement was going to expire at the end of 23, they now have until the end of 24 to replace those animals.
Sure. So again, a little more time and kind of make that all kind of flow as best you can. Okay. So as we wrap this up, before long, you're going to be very, very busy. Seems like you're busy all the time, but more tax schools coming up. There'll be places around the state, also online. Boy, I saw the agenda.
Right.
Lots of good updates, a lot of things that people should probably be on top of.
Yeah, these are the K-State tax institutes that have been running since the 1940s, before World War II. And so over 80 years of these, just about. I think we're in year 81 or 2, if I remember right. And these are at 6 locations across the state, plus 2 of the 2-day seminars that are entirely online. And we start in early November, and the first one is an online one. And then we catch Garden City and Hayes, and then the other locations in person are Salina, Wichita, Lawrence, and Pittsburgh. And then we end on just about a week before Christmas with the second online school. These are 2 days in each location, and the complete list of topics that we'll cover and speakers and the Department of Revenue will be at each location and at the online events too, to cover Kansas tax. These are great schools. I know there was a survey done a number of years ago, and it revealed that over 90% of all the farm returns in Kansas were prepared by people that had attended a Kansas State University tax school. So we're pretty proud of those. We think it's top quality education, and the complete list they can find on a blog article that I wrote that's on my website, as well as on Ag Manager, and registrations through K-State on Ag Manager website.
All right, Dr. McEowen, there's a lot of information. We just didn't have a chance to get to all 4 of these. So how can folks gain your blogs, posts to read about all these things and get all this information?
Well, through my website, which is washburnlaw.edu/WALTR, as well as on the K-State Ag Econ Department Ag Manager website.
Dr. McEowen, as always, look forward to talking with you next month.
Thanks, Ken.
Dr. Roger McEowen, the Ag and Tax Law Specialist at the Washburn School of Law, has joined us. We'll have more coming up in just a moment.
Premier Farm and Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm and Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
Happy October from Kansas Grain Sorghum. Maddie Meyer, Director of Programs, here to bring you the latest Kansas Grain Sorghum update. It seems as though a few of our growers across the state have already begun harvest. As of October 2nd, the grain sorghum crop conditions are as follows: 11% very poor, 19% poor, 38% fair, 28% good, and 4% excellent. Sorghum coloring was 94%, near 91% last year, and 95% average. Mature was 60%, ahead of 50% last year, and 54% average. Harvested was 19%, ahead of 9% last year and 11% average, according to the USDA. By the way, there's still plenty of time to enter the National Sorghum Yield Contest. Entries are categorized into 4 divisions in the East and West regions, respectively: dryland tillage, dryland no-till, irrigated, and food grade. Be sure to enter by November 15th, 2023 to be up for contention as a sorghum yield champion. Winners will be recognized during the National Commodity Classic, which will be held February 28th through March 2nd, 2024 in Houston, Texas. Ready to harvest the win? Enter today at the link below. Here at Kansas Grain Sorghum, We understand that this time can be busy for all, which can bring on unwanted stress or anxiety. Mental health is always a difficult subject to talk about, but together we can end the stigma. After all, providing for our country day in and day out is no easy task. KansasAgStress.org has plenty of resources for those who are facing ag-related stress. After all, no one is alone. Thank you, and stay tuned for next time.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Imagine turning soybean oil, used cooking oils, and waste animal fats into fuel so amazing it drives U.S. jobs and our economy forward. Learn more about biodiesel at americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
Several years ago, the Kansas Department of Agriculture began a new program to help us shine a spotlight on those in the agriculture community who go above and beyond to serve others and the industry, and we call it Kansas Ag Heroes. Once again this year, we received some wonderful nominations, and we selected several standouts and recognized them during the Ag Growth Summit on August 17th. Those selected for special honors included Dr. Stephen Blythe, a large animal veterinarian in Wabaunsee, who runs a mobile vet clinic and is also a sale barn vet, a rancher, and a volunteer firefighter. Chad Bontrager has helped feed his Holton community by opening a grocery store along with other food and agriculture businesses, which offer locally sourced food to the public. Teresa Brandenburg of Russell was the first woman president of the Kansas Soybean Association and now serves as the chairwoman of the board, advocating for agriculture locally and on the national level. Steve and Colleen Duell and their sons Aaron and Adam serve their community in Sherman County in many ways, including serving on the county fair board and many volunteer projects that encourage growth and community pride. Dan Nevius is a leader in the roping and barrel racing community near Spring Hill, opening up his arena for learning and competitive opportunities to encourage rodeo activities in the community. Ron Supas of Dighton has spent many years promoting Kansas agricultural commodities as a member of the Kansas Wheat Commission and was recently seated as the Wheat Foods Council chairman as he promotes wheat around the world. You can see more about the 2023 Kansas Ag Heroes, including other nominees, on our website at agriculture.ks.gov/agheroes. KDA appreciates all those who submitted nominations, and we are especially thankful for these Kansas Ag Heroes and the thousands more we know stepped up to serve this year.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the soybean checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
That small, round bean grown in crop fields around the world is mostly composed of protein meal at 80% of its makeup when processed. The vast majority of that meal makes a nutritious feed source for livestock. Each October, Kansas Soybean recognizes National Pork Month to celebrate the #1 consumer of soybean meal in our state. Soybean meal is the most widely used ingredient source of amino acids for pig diets. You can think of amino acids as building blocks of protein that help supply energy to the pig. According to 2023 research published on soymeal.org that examined the value proposition for soybean meal in the soybean supply chain, incremental bumps in a soybean's nutritional composition, like the amino acids, causes an increase in the value of soybean meal. The study quantified soybean meal value in swine diets using the nutritional attributes of digestible amino acids and energy, and used a formulation software to calculate costs for 5 crude protein concentrations from 44 to 48%. Crop yield is incentivized in the marketplace, which often leads to a decline in amino acid concentration and energy content, the research summary says. The results of the study indicate that for each 1% increase in soybean meal's crude protein concentration, the value of the meal increased $10.27 per metric ton of pig feed. It is also good news for corn. The summary states that increases in soybean crude protein content in feed rations leads to increased usage of corn in those same diets. In addition to the protein and energy benefits provided to swine by soybeans, research indicates components of soy, such as the isoflavones, can promote immune health benefits to pigs. There are numerous reasons for pigs to love soy, and we love it because beans make bacon.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
The Farm Service Agency has begun issuing more than $581 million to eligible ranchers through the Emergency Livestock Relief Program. These payments will help those recovering from drought and wildfire in 2021 and 2022. Ranchers who lost grazing acres due to these natural disasters in 2021 and received assistance through Emergency Livestock Relief Program Phase 1 soon will receive an additional payment. The second payment will be equal to 20% of the 2021 gross Phase 1 payment. Phase 2 payments, which are estimated to total $115.7 million, will be automatic with no application required. In 2022, ranchers continued to experience significant loss of grazing acres due to drought and wildfire. To help mitigate these losses, eligible ranchers will receive Emergency Livestock Relief Program disaster assistance payments for increases in supplemental feed cost. To expedite payments, determine producer eligibility, and calculate the 2022 payment, FSA is using livestock inventories and drought-affected forage acreage or restricted animal units and grazing days due to wildfire already reported to the agency by ranchers when they submitted their Livestock Forage Disaster Program applications. Emergency Livestock Relief Program payments for 2022 losses are estimated at $465.4 million and also will be automatic with no application required. For more information, contact your local FSA office.
More farmers and ranchers than ever have chosen to be BQA certified.
Imagine turning soybean oil, used cooking oils, and waste animal fats into fuel so amazing it drives U.S. jobs and our economy forward. Learn more about biodiesel at americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
Good morning. This is Jacob Herzog with Pinion Risk Management. With last week's USDA supply and demand report out of the way, and harvest in full bore on average throughout the country, we understand this is among the busiest time of the year for producers. But domestic markets and outside international affairs events need to be kept in mind. Domestically, basis values have been improving into harvest out east, and in various places out west, so keep an eye on your local elevator for opportunities. Now, a big elephant on the markets is if the government is going to shut down. For how long? This will put off any regular USDA reports. How will the market react to this uncertainty? Internationally, the other elephant, the Israel-Hamas war, will it expand outside of those currently involved? While it will most likely not affect agricultural commodities directly, if there is spillover into neighboring countries, how much will it impact oil? Which will have a knock-on effect on ethanol, and in turn, possibly the grain complex. The funds currently hold a hefty net short position. The market does not like uncertainty, and we could see a volatility sharply rise. Does this even matter? Is any of this even likely? Well, Just like when we approach any major USDA report, what will we do if there's a major run? What will we do, or have we already done, in case there's a big fall? Just like when anything else, when it comes to marketing, you need to have a plan for X, Y, or Z, so that we can be proactive decision makers versus reactive decision makers, be an offensive marketer versus a defensive marketer. If you would like to talk to somebody about a plan, you can reach us at 888-452-8751. I'm Jacob Herzog with Pinion Risk Management.
Mental health is really important to me. Not only have I struggled myself, but I've watched other farmers struggle. I saw my grandfather struggle from time to time, and we're out here for hours on end by ourselves, and it just lets our mind race, about what if, what about that, the sacrifices that we're making. My kids aren't seeing me, my wife's not seeing me, what am I missing out at home? And there's a lot of things that we can't control that we think we can control. I credit my wife a lot for me going and seeking help. I respect all the women in her shoes that do what she does on a daily basis. I think I've become a stronger person by talking about it, and I hope that my story helps other farmers talk about their struggles and feel like it's okay to talk about it, because it's one of those things that if we don't talk about it, nobody knows that we're struggling, and the struggle is real.
Well, that's our show this week. Be social with us online, KansasAgReport.net, or our social media channels. Harvest is in full swing around the state of Kansas. Be extra careful as those machines go from field to field and along the highways, byways, and back roads in Kansas. It is time to collect all that hard work that was done this summer. It's time to get paid on them Kansas farms and ranches. I'm Ken Rogers. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week on the Kansas Ag Report.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.